Hi everyone. So we're coming back to the Oxted FIDE All Play All after a little bit of a break. There's not much else really to say apart from just getting on into the game. I'm playing as the white pieces. My opponent's slightly higher rated than me, but we're basically the same rating. So yeah, I played knight f3 on move 1. He plays d5, and at this point you probably know the score if we play d4. Sorry. He played knight f6, c4, e6, and g3. And this is sort of, if you play the opening ideas that I play with knight f3 and move 1, this is almost the ideal setup. This is what I'm planning to go for. I want to sort of force my opponent into more cast-line positions. He plays bishop e3, e7, sorry. This is the known as the closed cast line. Other options, there are three main options here, as I spoke before. This bishop e7, bishop b4 check, with often the idea to go back to e7, and just taking as well for the open castle. B plays the closed. I play bishop g2, castles, castle. You can castle in this position. However, after castles, black will often take here, and this can sometimes be an annoying position to prove advantage for white. So to get around that, if you move order, queen c2, which does have also another downside, is that c5 is a bit more annoying. But if your opponent doesn't play for that, then you actually have nicer chances. Luckily, my opponent didn't play that. He actually played knight c6. And as I've said in many queen pawn openings, it's a bit odd to have the knight in front of the pawn over here. It just doesn't make too much sense. Like, it's completely playable. It just, for me, I'm not sure. It just, I wouldn't block the c pawn in a queen pawn opening castle. He plays a5, which is a reasonable move, just attacking on the queen side, also securing this square for his knight, and perhaps stopping any of my pawn pushes that I might want to go on the queen side, because I definitely am going to be stronger than queen side, probably. I go for a3, just stopping any knight before ideas. He brings his rook to the centre, I do the same. This is very standard places to put your rooks in this sort of system. He moves his bishop. I wasn't too sure about this one, personally. I don't see what the bishop is doing on d6 that it wasn't doing on e7. I guess maybe he was scared of the file opening up, and if we go back to this position, the queen can't actually move off the file. So maybe he thought he'd block with the bishop, but this to me doesn't achieve too much. I placed the knight on d2. So an important thing to note in sort of cast-line positions is if your queen is on c2 guarding this pawn, you don't want to block it with the knight, so the knight comes to d2, and too many arrows. And this does block in your dark square bishop, but often this will be resolved quite quickly, and the bishop might even come out this way, so it's not really an issue. And the bishop being on c1, although it's not developed in the traditional sense of it's not left its starting square, it's still very good on the c1 square. So often the knight comes to d2 first, and the whole idea of it and how you play for an advantage in the castle is to go for e4. He plays bishop e7 and d7, and of course I play e4. This is the only way that I'm going to make progress in this position. This is what I have to play for if I want to advance. He decided to take, so I take, and again notice now the bishop has been freed up, so I don't have that issue anymore, so this is playing into my hands. He takes and he takes. And then he decided to go for f5. Now this is a very committal move. At this point, white is to be preferred, but only on a level of you're playing white as the cast line, sort of being preferred. You just have a nice advantage. The position is quite nice. These bishops have moved a couple of times and have been in an awkward spot, but it's not like, and this knight's slightly awkward, but it's not like white is winning by any chances. After f5, this is a really odd move to play in this position, as now this is now going to become a weakness. And we're actually going to see black doesn't actually have many moves. It's only +2 by computer standards, but you really have to come up with a solid idea for black, and I wasn't really too sure he was going for this. I decided between queen e2 and queen d3. Perks of e2 is that you still pressure this d6 pawn. The downside is you're still on the same file as the rook, so I thought it would just be better to sidestep. And this is, yeah, good move to play. He plays queen f6. I guess he wanted to get his queen off this battery that I was like performing against his queen. But now I get to play a lot of moves with tempo, as we're about to see, and most things that come here are pretty forced. And it just starts becoming very cramped for black, and it's hard to suggest moves. So after bishop attacking, just developing my piece and gaining space, he has to move his queen. I now attack his bishop, gaining more space. The bishop can't go along this diagonal anymore, so it has to go back. He went all the way back to c8. And I now just slide my bishop to f4. And notice how these bishops, once this knight moves, is just going to be a monster on the queen's side. And I'm just going to rip him apart, pretty much. And there's not too much he can do about it. His pieces are a bit stuck. This bishop is stuck behind these pawns. This bishop is being blunted by this pawn. His queen is sort of on the wrong side of the board, and yes, his rooks are connected and his knight is briefly blocking the way, but not too much is going on. So he has to defend the pawn. He played rook c8. The computer prefers this rook going this way because you want to keep the rooks on this side of the board because this is where everything's happening, but he decides to play this way. Now, this is a good pause the video moment to come up with a plan to try and push the advantage, because we can see here that white has all the space. White has an amazing bishop pair, much better than the bishops on black's end. My knight's probably better than his knight as well. So what move would you go here to push the advantage? There's a few here, but it's a nice tactical idea. Not tactical, but more of a positional idea of just how are you going to crash through. Because I knew in the game that I was winning, but it's all saying that you are winning, that to actually have a plan and know how to use it. So there's quite a few ideas here. The one that I played in the game is good, is knight e5, and just attacking this queen, also unleashing my bishop, and this is quite nice. The other idea, which is one that I didn't see, but I used this idea later on, is to play b4, with the idea that you give up a pawn, like so, but now, once the knight has to go back, you can now recapture the pawn, material equal, and these pieces are under pressure. This rook is coming, this rook is coming, and there's not much really to do for black, and I can just push these pawns at will. And black, as you can see, I'm basically playing with 3/4 of the board, and black has been stuck in 1/4 in the top right. So this definitely would have been the most accurate way to play, and it's something I looked at with my coach afterwards. But the idea that I went for in the game is still good, it's still winning for white, and to me this seemed logical as well. I just want to be opening up this pathway for my bishop. I am briefly shutting in my other bishop, but after he trades I can just take back, and I'm also blockading this pawn, so he's got no pawn breaks to go for, and this pawn is hanging. So in the game I was expecting him to play bishop c6, and after taking, these are now massive targets. This queen can maybe come into a6, and these pawns are going to be falling. There's no way to defend them. It's hard to suggest moves here for black, maybe just h5 and going after kingside attack, but I can just start gobbling these up, and really there's not much for black to do. Again, this is a weakness that's going to forward check. I can move these rooks this way. It's just great position. So instead he didn't play that, he moved his queen back, and this is just a free pawn, so I'm going to take it. He attacked my rook, and I saw this beforehand before I took it, and I thought this was a nice move, just playing c6, just locking the position down, and this now becomes a lot harder for him to play. After he moves his bishop back, queen to a6, and I'm the one playing with space, I'm the one with the advantage, for sure. Again, not materially up, just positionally it's better, and even if it wasn't positionally better, even if there wasn't a concrete line going forward that would be winning for white, it's just so much easier for white to play, and black's going to have to find some very accurate moves in this position. Decides to take, I take back. He played bishop d6, just defending this pawn, and I thought I played quite a nice move here. I was actually happy to see afterwards that this is the sort of top computer idea. Now, the things that I noticed here is that this pawn is actually going to be quite hard to defend because of my b2 pawn in the way of my rooks, and it's going to take quite some moves for me to get to the b2 pawn to help it. Now, the counterpoint to that is that it's quite hard for black to actually attack the b7 pawn, because only this rook is attacking it, and it's really hard to get another rook to attack it. Also, these rooks can't really move because I'll either queen or just to take the rook itself. So to me, the only reasonable way that Black could attack this pawn is by moving this pawn, which currently isn't possible because I'd just take the bishop. But perhaps if he takes the bishop, takes the pawn, and then plays c6 or c7, c5, then this queen's able to come across. So my idea here was just basically to freeze the c7 pawn. The c7 pawn would then not only become a target, but then also my b7 pawn is then quite hard to pick off. So the move that came up here was queen c6, which just means that this pawn can't move, this pawn's defended, and there's no easy way for Black to attack my pawn. He decided to defend the bishop and also play against maybe a pin here. I decided to bring my rook in. The move that I had to keep calculating these positions was queen d7, and I think this was the scariest move from him. He's still probably doing well, but I just didn't want, after this, queen d7 probably doesn't work in this position, but later it's quite frustrating. But I had to calculate, and I did come up with bishop takes in the game, and if queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, then rook c7, and eventually this rook's going to come in and I'm going to queen. And he can't come after this pawn as well, because if he goes this way, I take this pawn, he comes here, I can throw in this check first. This is the sort of stuff that you have to see in advance. And part of chess is like the moves that don't get played are also really important to understand, because if these moves are losing, then I can't be playing this whole system and I need to change up what I'm doing. But I did calculate all this, so I was pretty happy with myself. So rook c1. He pushes his pawn. The idea, at the time it didn't dawn on me when he played this move, but after his next move I realised what he was doing, is that basically he's going to have a lot of issues in the back rank, and by just simply getting his king off the back rank, it becomes a lot easier for him to not run into any checking issues like we just saw in that last position, because if that didn't come with check, then simply he could just take the pawn. And now I decided to go for the b4 idea that we saw earlier. And perhaps pause the video. Can you take twice on b4 as Black? I haven't checked this, but I'm pretty sure you can't, because after b4, ab4, bishop b4, then I'd have bishop c7 just attacking these rooks, and this is pretty much game over. There isn't much to say. You can take this pawn here, but I'm just going to take this rook, and I'm just now up a rook for 2 pawns, so you can't really do that. He did take once, but he didn't take for the third time he saw what I was doing. He just moved his king off the back rank, which I think is a good practical idea. I push my pawn forward. Now, in any event where he plays queen e7 and tries to take, then I can take back this way, and then I'm just going to move my rooks around this way, and this is going to be a victory for white. And at this point, I was starting to realise I have this great pressure, I've done really well, but what is actually my win condition? And my win condition here is getting a rook to either a7 or a8 and just forcing an exchange where either I'm going to promote and just be up a queen, or he's going to be giving up a rook for a pawn and I'm just going to be up a rook. And I knew this at this point. So after he played queen a5, I formulated a plan, and I knew that my main plan to win and the win condition is to play rook a8. I took first, which is fine, he took back, and again, just playing rook a1 in this position is good. The slight issue with rook a1 is if you play rook a1 wanting to play rook a8, you can't leave the file just yet because this rook is under attack. But you counter this by just simply moving the rook away. Black really has nothing else to do, maybe rook f8. You can move this rook across, and eventually this is coming, and white is winning. Unfortunately for me, there's a difference in what I did, because I came up with the same idea, but I played rook d2 with the idea that I'm going to swing around this way and go here. But notice how rook a1 creates this threat immediately, whereas rook d2 is an extra 2 steps rather than just 1. And these tempos unfortunately give my opponent a bit more time to recover. It's still better for white, but it's not winning as much as it was, and the game then became quite frustrating for me because I've been sitting there for about 15, 20 moves, being very proud of myself, coming out with ideas like Queen C6 and B4, and thinking that this is winning. And even I knew about Rook A1. It's just that rather than play the, it sounds odd, rather than play the winning move, playing setup moves to improve the winning moves, when the goal is to play Rook E1, Rook A8, I shouldn't be adding extra steps to that, because I'm just sort of slowing down and giving my opponent chances. And after Queen F7, I was getting a bit frustrated now, because notice how this pawn is hit twice. And the only way to defend it is to put my queen in front of it. And there's a great move that I didn't see in this game. Perhaps pause the video for black. I'll even flip the board if you want to. Although we've been staring at it this way for this entire time, so it'll be a bit odd. There is one move here which actually manages to hold on to the game for black. And unfortunately for me, my opponent found it. Like with quite a few of these games so far, I keep getting the positions where my opponent has only one move to hold, but I shouldn't be getting there because I was actually winning. But yeah, there's a really nice move here for black. So the move is Queen D7. Taking the queen is not a good idea because after Rook takes, this is now completely winning for white, and black is still stuck here defending these pawns and can't really do anything. But after Queen D6, it's actually hard to suggest a move for white. There's not Rook C6 perhaps, and then bring the... I didn't actually see this Rook C6 idea before, and then bring the Rook this way. But still, black has now actually got some better chances. In the game I played Rook B2, which is also good. He then took my pawn because it's now not defended. He took, and I pushed. And he brought his king. And at this point, I played H4, I think. And he actually offered me a draw. And I wasn't sure about this endgame. I was actually scared that I'd be losing. If you run this with a computer, it actually says that white is better. And this is an endgame that I need to study because I'm not sure why white is better. Because black's king is more centralized. And yes, I have this outside pawn. But black only has one pawn island, whereas I have three. So it was my assumption that if anyone was better, it would actually be black. So although I'm happy to accept a draw in this position, despite being better, I'm unhappy because about 5 moves before I was probably completely winning. And as I've mentioned a few times in the series, that's been an issue for me. Is I think I felt like I've positionally outplayed quite a few opponents in middle game ideas, and then just failed to convert tactically at the end. So yeah, I just need to be working on my tactics more and calculating. Also, it's not that I missed the Rook A1, A8 idea. I knew this was my win condition. But if it's my win condition, that's the primary thing I should be playing, rather than trying to play setup moves. And I didn't see the difference between doing it this way and just this way, which is one move. But that one move is making all the difference in this situation. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to continue doing this series up until, I think there's about 3 more games. And then hopefully I'll have some more new tournaments at some point, or just continuing some other series and some ideas and tactics which are cool. But anyway, thanks for watching.